Hey guys, welcome back to How to Roll Dice. I'm Josh, and for today's daily dive, I just want to give you a quick look at the new shelving setup behind me here. If you're new to the channel, this probably isn't going to be any fun talking about shelves and the games that rest upon them, but you may want to go elsewhere on the channel and find a board game review to watch or something like that that'll actually be entertaining to you. I apologize, and thanks for checking the channel out. If you're familiar with the channel, you can probably tell that there's quite a bit more shelving behind me here, and that's because I went from having this 5-foot wide shelf and this 5-foot wide shelf to having both of those plus the 4-foot wide shelf directly behind me. They're all the same style of shelf. They're a heavy-duty wire rack. They're all 6 feet tall. They're all 18 inches deep, or I believe it's about 18 inches, foot and a half. But the one in the middle behind me is 4 foot instead of 5 foot because that's literally the maximum width I could fit putting them all end to end. This one is literally pressed up against that wall, and this one is literally pressed up against that wall, so much so that I had to hammer the center rack into place with a rubber mallet. That's the only way I could get them all to fit sort of end to end. They're in there very tight. So this is the maximum number of games that I can fit in this space, at least on this wall. They are going from floor to ceiling. The top games on this shelf up here, which you can't quite make out because they're just out of frame. I could make it so that it's in frame. This is my wide angle lens, but there's some wiring and stuff back there that wouldn't look nice. But those games right there, especially Star Wars Rebellion, are about 3 inches from touching the ceiling above them. And the bottom rack is only 6 inches off the floor, and that's to avoid water vapors from any moisture that might make it into the basement, even though I have measures to stop that. That's sort of to help make sure that no moisture gets into the cardboard. And so this is like maximum gaming capacity as far as the shelving goes. You can see on these two shelves over here, I do have one shelf of RPGs, although it has a couple of board games already invading onto it. Right here. That's Concordia and the Concordia expansion, as well as Super Dungeon Explorer. But the rest of the shelf is RPG books, not all of my RPG books, but the ones that I use frequently enough and new ones that I've purchased, as well as some RPG components over there, notebooks, dice trays, things like that. And then on this bottom shelf down here on this side, we've got some paints, some hobbying materials. I've got my traveling games bag, so that holds 6 or 7 board games, and a handful of other things, just like gaming related stuff. Now, I do plan on moving that stuff off of those shelves onto a separate shelf against this wall over here, so it'll be out of frame, and that's because I mostly want to have you guys looking at the board games, and because I'll need the space on those shelves soon enough, right? I've switched back to having my games on end, library style, like books on a shelf. I think it just looks a lot nicer, and it allows me to organize my games in a way that makes sense. Right now, these are all organized in my preferred way when working with this many games, which is by max player size for the game, the game's max player size, as well as box size, like physical box size. So in the top corner over there, we start with 2-player games and a relatively small box of Fox in the Forest. And then we make our way across that top shelf until we get about halfway across that shelf up there. And that's where we hit the 3 to 4-player games with what looks like, what is that? I want to say Hedgehog Hop or Squirrel or Die over there. Very small box games, 4-player games. We go across 4-player games, this whole second shelf here, all the way across, and then all the way across this shelf here until we get right there where level 7, that large black box, reaches down and touches that crinkly red package, which is Ramen Fury. And now we're in 5-player games. You go 5-player games across the end of that shelf, all the way across this shelf, which is actually the lowest shelf you can see, until we make it all the way to the end with Concordia. That's the end of the 5-player games, and then some space for those RPGs there. And now this bottom shelf, which you actually can't see at all, is full all the way from that corner all the way to the end of this sort of shelving section right here. Those are 6+ player games that go from 6+ over there all the way to 99 player plus with games like what do you call it? Cards Against Humanity. So those are full all the way except these two sections over here, and I'll soon enough need those. As I start adding games in here or there, it'll cause a shifting to happen, and games will start to slide into those sections. I think I can probably fit another 15 to 20 board games in those 2 sections once I get all that other stuff out. So that gets me another 1.5 to 2 years of buying games, something like that, somewhere in that range, which is plenty of time. And by then I'll have figured something else out to add more games to this room. But anyways, this is the new layout. I've got the TV back there. Usually if we're doing hobby type stuff, we're painting or we're, doing something else that's not specifically playing a board game, I'll just throw reruns of like a classic show on there, like Seinfeld or Frasier or something, just to have some background noise, something to glance up at while you're like working on a model. So you're not just feeling like it's so tedious tedious that you're just staring at this thing doing nothing else. I at least like to have something in the background. Or when we're playing a board game, I always like to have background music or background sound effects to the theme of the game playing. And so I'll use a YouTube playlist or a Spotify playlist and find something that matches the theme of the game. Like recently we've been playing a lot of Hansa Teutonica, which is actually a sort of an antique German game. Or when I say antique and German, I mean it's simultaneously a German style game that takes place in the Hanseatic era of Germany. And so we've been playing Oktoberfest music every time we play that game, which is probably not exactly on theme, but it's close enough for us and it's fun. So yeah, TV's up there. There's a little something else we're going to be doing with the TV in the future, but you'll find out about that in later videos. But yeah, shelving games back to the way that I like them. Lots of room for now. Yeah, just general upgrades all around. Hope you guys are doing well. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.